around, and that's what happened. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back. Here we are on page Kuf Aleph in the Drushi al Laila Drush base. We're in the second drush. We're really close to the beginning of the third drush. So we're just going to read across the top to try to get into a place where I think is more like where we're really up to. So it says, Kodem Azivim Mekabel Zer Anpin, before the Yichud can take place. Zer Anpin has to get Mohim, Chadashim, Ma'ulim, a higher level, a more benimistical level of Mohim, new ones. Being Tomer, so if you say, like the Chabri Kevin should istalkuch on Mamochim B'mena, but if you say, wait a minute, his Mohim left him. So how does it work? You know, he says, the Nukva and his Mochim are given to the Nukva. How does he make a Yichud if he, excuse me, if he has no Mochim? He says, Aka Inyan, but the Inyan is really like this. Ki Osam Amochim and Rishonim. So the original Mochim that he had. The Nai Tavuna entered into Zer Anpin and he got Mochim there. He says, Haim behiyosa devuka ba'achrov kodem and Nesira. But this is what's coming into Zer Anpin before the Nesira takes place. He's still feeding the Nuk. Hoya chelek or hamochin shebesoch Zer Anpin. So there's a portion of that light inside of Zer Anpin, haroy lahagdil in the cave, which is meant for growing the female aspect. Niknas bechila tos Zer Anpin. Now all this we know. They come into Zer Anpin first. V'achakach yotza or metocha. Then the light comes out from inside of him. Derek nekev achrei achaza v'chotz. Uboinech hakelim shal nukva, and they build the kelim of the nukva. V'hoisecha v'hi tzricha lekabel v'liyanek v'mena, and she therefore is able to receive this and feed off of it. But because of this, she's not able to completely and totally grow. She is grown, but not in the most advantageous way. So therefore, that has to come, a Nesira has to come. How does this work? So he wants to say that this metaphor here, when he says the word Hashem, which refers to Abba, it's the male side, and Elokim, which is the din side, which is Ima. She has to get the straight transfusion from Abba Ve'ima, rather than through Zer Anpin in the middle. So this causes the growth of more of her Kalim. Parts of Shalom Shalom on Yedei Zer Anpin, and she becomes a complete parts of, and she doesn't need Zer Anpin. It's happening not through Zer Anpin. So then after she's grown and she's completely removed and she's grown to her full height, then she is brought, and that question about how she is brought, but that's part of the idea, there's an attraction between them that causes her to come around to the front. I don't know the details of it exactly right now. Then they're able to make a yichud. Let's see if there's anything I can get out of this number Kaf Ches that would, and she's brought to the man. So I'm concerned about this word v'yavia. Adam panim b'panim is davgu yakov. Yichud, I hear that. So now what's happened is that she develops a separate backside. In other words, it used to be they split it, half each. Now she has a complete one. The nishpal of the Esses spheres, and now she becomes complete with 10 spheres. Chosrim zun panim b'panim. Now he doesn't get into the yavia, so how she comes over there, but they come now, and I'm saying that it seems like there's just a natural attraction between the two of them. They're opposites. They want to be together. Chosrim zun panim b'panim and nimshachin dechem b'mochin depanim, and now mochin depanim come from them. And then a yichud takes place. So this is what it says in this pasuk, v'yavbihu el Adam. So that's the chumash itself, that she's brought to the man. Hanu panim b'panim. The bringing here, he says, is not the action. I'm trying to think of what's the force that brings her around to the front. So I put an answer on it. I said, because they're attracted to each other. So he said, but the phrase v'yavihu el Adam, that means that she's brought to him by panim b'panim. I mean, she was with the Adam when she was back to back with him, but now she's face to face. And then after she's face to face, nizdav go to make a yichud, k'mo shekasav Adam, Yoda as Chava Ishto, he knew that word Yoda, we should play with that word as well, with Chava, his wife. So let's see like this, there's a little bit more. Let's see, where is, first of all, let's see what Yud Zayin says. Yud Zayin V'im Tomer V'harei Kevin Shenistalka Ha'mochem B'mena V'nalsa the Nukva Ech Mizda V'gimah. So I think that's a good question. So let's see, I don't know if I got it so on the page where you could see it. V'im Tomer V'harei Kevin Shenistalka Ha'mochem B'mena V'nalsa the Nukva, and they give it a Ech Mizda V'gimah. If he has no Mochem, how is he going to do that? Hiksha Mefarshin, so he says, look at the Govi, but even the question, he says, it doesn't make any sense. The Halom Mavor will come on because we'll explain later on, we're getting into this. And that's going to be in the fourth drush. He said, the Hadormita Na'asas Rak Adachatzalayla. And that's just a little fact that we're going to see later on. The Dormita, which allows for the transfer of the Mochin inside of their Anpin into the Nook, he says, Na'asas rak adachatzo salada, but that dormita only lasts until midnight. If a chatzo salayla, chozrin the mochin, and the mochin come back again. Beresha dezer into this Beresha dezer anpin is davigim a nook, and now he has mochin to make a yichud with the nook. So that's the case. Nimsa shebe'esa ziva b'chatzo salayla, that yichud that takes place at that time, using that explanation, he already has the mochim. My problem with this would be, if you took the mochim out of him, put it into her, she comes around to his front. Where's the mochim that were put into her now? Or is that the male mochim going to Zeranpin, or how does it work? So he said, how can you make a yichud without mochim? But we say that the mochin came back before the yichud. So Rav Hashem and Salsa, and I see this as a problem, but he said, so this in Salsa is exactly what the Rav answers. The mochin come back at midnight. So we're just get that idea there. And the Yaf Shaar's got lots of good stuff, so does everybody. So let's go on here to number Yud Ches, or number Lamed Yud Ches, and let's read, I guess we'll read from the Tiv. Aka Inyanhu, but the thing is to know is like this. Ki osam ha-mochem ha-rishonim shehoyu lo al-yidecha menai de-devuna, those mochem that he had as a result of the nai de-devuna that came into him, that's a question I was asking before. I don't know if this is a question, or just saying that's what goes into the nukva. So then here's a whole paladika thing. He says, then after that, his mochin are gone. What happens is he goes back up higher. But nitnaso mochim, and then come into him, mochin, acherim, other mochin, Chadashim, new ones, Yosem Ma'ulim, because what happened here? I mean, he lost his mochin. Now he's sitting there all alone. And now he's saying, well, then he rises up. And he gets no mochin. And they come from where? From Abba Ve'im Eloi. And those are interesting things that are going on over here. The Chanekroim Chochma Bina, who are also known as Chochma Bina. Now, let's have the tshuva the Zaki. So let me answer this. He says, this is the answer. The la'acha yitzias ha'mochem b'zer anpin v'nitnim alanuk. Ma'ala zer anpin man. He's alone and he's praying. He's ma'alaman el abba v'ima, to his creators. That is the channel that's immediately, I don't mean to say that, a disclaimer. It means his origin, that is the previous place from which he came. And that's how it comes about. Now let's see if there's anything over here in the Tiv that we can get our hands on. The Tiv writes like this. He said, although who Yosu, then he goes up to a higher level. Lamala, the nittasach b'mochim acherim, and it comes in new mochim into him. Chadashim, which are new, Yosef Ma'ulin. V'heim min anai the Abba ve'im Eloy. And that's a question of what's going on here. The Yesh Devar. So let me explain this. He says, Zos al pi shnecha derachim shenitzmar la'el. Let me take the two different ways of looking at this. So here one place, this was the dichotomy that he had said previously. The one that has to do with the ultimate yichud. And this is where it says on this, now coming to Zer Anpin, mochin upon him. That's the radiance of the face shining. That's a higher level of light than mochin that are coming from the backside. Which is what he had before the dormita. In other words, this is mochin the kadnus that he's receiving before there's a possibility of a yichud. And so that he says this coining a phrase. That when we say mochin Elohim, we're really talking about mochin deponim. And we call them by the name of Abba Ve'im Elohim, Ayin Sham. He says, you'll see that later on. Now the other way of looking at this is like this. There's two different yichudim. There's one, or zivug, there's one that takes place, is a complete and ultimate yichud for the purpose of creation. And the other one is a preparational, the v'dor chashniya. Ma'rekan b'chazivug dabiyah rishona, of the first time that they come together. That actually they do have these mochin that come to them from Abba Ve'im Elohim, but we're still talking about what they get at that time of Mochin Depanim. There's more to be said about this. And even though they still haven't gotten Mochin Depanim, because that's what happens, that's the yichud that takes place before the ultimate yichud. That is the yichud for preparing, I think they call it ruach v'kenim. That there is a relationship, a male and female relationship that has to take place first, but since it can't in the position that the Zohar and Nuk are, because they're back to back, and they're in a position of katnus, so they rise up to the level of the Chek Abba Ve'im, that's what they say. And there, as a result of that, they receive at that place mochin deponim. And the Chek Abba Ve'im, Mekabla Ke'ez, as a mochin deponim, L'Shah, for this reason, the Surah Chaziva de Bia Rishona, because of the yichud of the first Bia. That original Bia, like I said before. Ba'amnam az Allahu Yosel Lamala. Now we'll take another question here. He gets new mochin v'chein min anai the Abba Ve'im Elohim, all of that phrase there. Now we just heard an idea that Abba Ve'im Elohim refers to mochin upon it. But then there's two different ways of looking at this, whether we're talking about the final bia or we're talking about preparatory bia. So he's really, the Shem and Sasa, really wondering about this. Let me get this over here a little bit better. Because it says at the time when Zerah is brought to sleep, he says they're coming to him, mochim the Abba Ve'im Elohim v'hu tema. This is a tremendous question. Yizechav Lomer shemekabel atach b'mochim kol kach me'ulim. How is he getting such tremendously high mochim? Od Yosef, more than that. The mea mochim shemekabel b'be'eset tefillah shehem rak mochim the Yisrael Saba. So he said, but wait a minute. At the time that you're davening, Od Yosef Mahamochim Makaba Be'eset Tefillah, when you're saying the Shemona Esrei, which are what? Rak Mochin the Yasos. The Yasos, in other words, a lower level, it's the lower level of Abba Ve'ima. V'rak B'Shavas Makaba Mochin the Abba Ve'ima Elohim, that's the only time then. The Beseder and the Sira is that not furthermore. Beseder and the Sira, as we look at how the removal of the Nuk for the back of Zer Anpin, that takes place by Ava in Chakras. If you're familiar with the Rishash, you really have to know what's going on in there. So when you're talking, that's in the very early part of the morning, that's at the very beginning of the Shemona Esrei, the Chakras, Lo Metzinam Muskar Shemekaba Mochem Ba'aba Ve'Elohim. That whole sequence there doesn't mention that they're receiving mochin for Abba V'Ima Eloim. But Nimsa Im came, so it comes out, if that's the case, Shahamam Shalcha Delilah B'Difa Mishalcha Yom. He says, what? Wait a minute. Over there it doesn't mention Abba V'Ima Eloim. It's mashma that it's only talking about Yisrael Savat Tavuna. So therefore we see that the Yichud that's taking place now, the one we're talking about now, which is the Netzira by nighttime, he said, the Nimsa Im Kain Shacham Shalcha Delilah Adifa Mishalcha Yom. But that leaves your question. The Nishar B'Tzarach Ian, so that in other words, the daytime is always Mu'ula over the nighttime. So I think that's what he's saying. So therefore it was left at something we have to investigate. V'yesh l'yashib b'peshitos, but then we can say a simple answer. Sharav korakan l'mochen depane b'shem Abba V'Ima Eloim. Once again, that same answer again. That there's the word Abba V'Ima Eloim really refers to mochen depanim. So he's the panim of the mochin the ach and the Abba V'Ima Eloim, and from the mochin the ach, which takes place Korah b'shem Yisrael Sabat Tavuna. So these different kinds of lights, there's lots more to that. So this is the idea that that's the Hamshacha of the mochin the Abba V'Ima Eloim, the Haina mochin the panim, and that's what we're right now.